So they're trying to make it up in volume, which obviously doesn't work. The math just doesn't work out.
So I want to go back to the NPM story. So when it was just you, what year was this? When it was just you?
From 2009 until end of 2013.
All those years, it was just you.
Yep.
Wow. And then, so what changed was like you didn't get VC, or did you get VC? Or
we did. So a coworker of mine at Joyent started noticing that I put this thing on the website that was like how many downloads we'd gotten in the last week, last month, or last day, week, and month, right? And he was like, "Wow, you got like 50,000 downloads in the last week. That's a lot of people using this thing." And then a month later, he'd be like, "Did you see it's like 100,000 now?" And a couple weeks later, like, it's like 2 million. What are you doing? I mean, he basically, he didn't actually say, quit your fucking job. But it was basically like, why are you still working here?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I've had that feeling before. That's what led me to do the other stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, now what was also kind of handy was that this coworker of mine who was saying this was the guy who had done a lot of the corp dev and raised about $100 million for Joyent over the years. So he knew about VC. So I basically was like, okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to quit this job. This guy knows from startups. He'll tell me who to talk to. We'll go get some money. Another friend of mine who I'd known from Yahoo, he had been working at a startup called Awesome.
Hold on.
This is fire truck. That's a big fire truck.
All right.
So another friend of mine that I kept in touch with was a good friend of mine I'd worked with at Yahoo, a really sharp guy. He was the technical co-founder at Awesome. He couldn't actually get the title CTO while he was there because he was on an H1B visa, which means you have to pay anybody on an H1B, you have to pay them the average rate for people with that job title within a 50-mile radius or something.
All right.
The average pay scale for somebody who has the title CTO in San Francisco would have burned all of their money on the first couple months.
Huh.
So he was the tech lead at that company, but it was effectively
It's
a
been a
CTO.
title where his pay grade matches what they can afford.
Basically, yeah. So the the error bars on CTO salaries are ridiculous, right? On any founder C level, you have a C in your title, but I mean, you're not actually getting paid much. So anyway, he had built this engineering team there, and knew a lot about kind of having, that was a URL shortener and links analytics type thing. So doing social media analytics for marketing companies and whatnot. And when your URL shortener goes down, even for a second, every single one of your customers is just so very angry.
Yeah.
And so they put a lot of effort into building systems that would just never go down. So end of 2013, the registry was down for basically unusable for weeks at a time. And so I decided we'll go raise some money, get Laurie on board. He'll tell me what we need to do to make the technology work and who to hire.
Now, is this for the link shorteners or?
Oh no, for NPM.
Okay.
And but that's what he'd been doing before, and I was like, he has exactly the skills that I need. It's
okay.
It's as if he'd been trained for this job. Since then I've just had really good luck reaching out to the people that we wanted to kind of pull in. I wrote this when we did close our round of funding. It was just the three of us. Our first, probably one of the best moves I've made at this company is I wrote this little blurb for our hiring page that was we are responsible adults who take our career seriously. We are not a work hard, play hard startup. We work reasonable hours. We take care of ourselves and our users. We think that this is the best way to to move towards success, right?
Yeah,
passion is our strategy.
That whole burn yourself out, and there's some famous examples where it's worked, but it so much more often just ends up destroying people.
What's funny is that when I wrote it, it was absolutely a lie, right? Like not a like a bad lie, like I'm trying to trick anybody, but like this is the company I want to work at, but we're not that yet. We're three people like pushing ourselves to the limit, trying to figure out how to put the fires out, and also figure out some way that we can actually make money out of this. I mean, I know the stories we told the VCs, but like, yeah, really, what are we going to do? That actually attracted, the people who would eventually come and make that story come true, which has really worked out really well for us.
Make it till you make it. So you tried to make it like, and I'm interested because I don't really know what the business model is that you guys have.
So basically, if you have you're using NPM to share and publish and deploy modules and do stuff with them. If you are a big company that's using Node, you probably have a lot of code that you can't share in the open source world. So you want a way to share it between your developers so they can use the same tools and have it be private.
So the GitHub model.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
That's basically the sort of the baseline business that we're pursuing initially. Beyond that, there's a lot we can do to make NPM and Node and JavaScript kind of have even more gravity in the tech world, right? To kind of help make Atwood's law come true.
Yes, thank you.
Even more.
We're all doing our part to make
Yeah.
our law.
But
Exactly.
I think Atwood's law was created kind of out of frustration. Like, God damn it, this seems to be true.
Well, actually,
not like let's make this true.
Well, actually, it was a good thing because when you walked up, I was talking about that blinking cursor when you booted up a computer.
Yeah.
A Commodore 64, Apple II, Atari, whatever you have. When you boot up, is that blinking cursor. It was all basic. So now I feel the equivalent is basically JavaScript. Like in the browser, you can hit F12. You can do all kinds of cool shit. Right? That's the new blinking cursor.
I've seen where people talk about a website and it's like, it doesn't work for me on mine. Oh, well, I just opened it up and I deleted a div and now it works. Like, wow.
The only thing that's screwing up my story is Minecraft. Because so many kids learn Java because of stupid Minecraft.
That is...
that should have been in JavaScript.
There's some folks doing JavaScript in look up voxel.js.
Nice.
There's some people doing effectively Minecraft in JavaScript in a web browser, using all the WebGL stuff.
I think it's great that kids are learning to code and learning that mode of thought because they're motivated to create something cool for Minecraft for their friends.
Yeah, Minecraft is a good thing.
But Java.
I know. Java's a bummer.
You guys are going to be working at
boring
corporations working on some expense reporting app.
Well, the thing I like about JavaScript is it kind of belongs to you. It's like your browser, your environment. It's your blinking cursor on your computer.
Yeah.
Java is someone else's computer, really. I mean, who actually has Java installed? I mean, come on.
I don't even. Yeah, they. I don't think I do.
Everything has JavaScript, right? It's sort of there, right? It's the default.
It's out of the browsers now by default, right? Applets.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole way that...
Applets are done. You just use those to hijack old IE machines. So, it was strange, actually. The shift from open source project maintainer to startup CEO is like... it was actually, I think, kind of a step down in terms of stress. I mean, when we were looking for seed funding, that went really fast, and it wasn't as if anything was going anywhere. You know what I mean? I had a job. I had plenty of savings. I wasn't too worried about it. It's an awful slog. Like, it's an unpleasant process because you're driving down to Menlo Park and Sand Hill Road, and it's like they named Sand Hill Road really, really well because it feels like you're trying to climb up a sand hill.
I did that whole fundraising thing for like 6 months straight, and I made so many mistakes on that. That can kill startups. Is just focusing on getting your next round of funding and not knowing how to approach it, so that you don't have all your time eating up and your business is deteriorating and you're becoming less and less attractive to the investors. Yeah, the longer you spend fundraising, the less interesting you are because they're like, oh well, all these other folks passed on you. You must not be that great. Yeah, and they all just read each other as much as they read you.
even though you'd think, as a rational investor, like you do kind of want to buck the trend as much as possible, as much as you can get away with. Just the math works out better for you that way, but that's not the business they're in. So anyway, once we did actually have enough money, we had a plan. It's not been that bad. I think the hardest thing for me is kind of transitioning to a role as an actual manager, right? Because when you're running an open source project with a bunch of contributors, a bunch of full-time contributors even. They're living in other countries. They're working for other companies. If there's you can't ever really pull rank, right? They're like, well, if you tell them, look, I really need you to do this thing, they'll be like, well, I really need you to get fucked. I'm gonna leave. Like, it's free. Screw it.
That's one of the things that I realized after a while is how little power managers actually have. When you're constantly being managed, you feel like, oh, they're always telling me what to do, but you actually have a lot of power as the guy who produces the output.
Absolutely.
And the managers, you're constantly you realize you can't just tell people, do this. In a creative business like software, the kind of people who will constantly do that are probably not the kind of people you really want.
Yeah.
So you constantly are having to convince people this is the direction to success.
Well, your job is to get people excited about it.
Yeah,
and that's really the skill.
But then you see somebody sometimes they get all excited about something, and you're like, this isn't what we're doing. Try not to work on that. We need you to work on stuff that's going to help us win.
Yeah.
And that gets you really stressed out as a manager. And sometimes you just say, you know what, go off and do your thing, because you got to do it to feed your soul.
You got a fan over here.
Oh. Hey! I don't know what the hell is that.
Pontiac GT.
Oh, Buick Wildcat.
Excuse me. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
I want to go back to something you're talking about, the having kids. So I had the experience of when we started. It was basically 2008. I didn't have any kids, and my first child was born in 2009. And one of the things I always say to people is, because I've had both of the experiences, like before Henry was there, I was all in on this thing, because what else was I going to do? If this didn't work, I had to go crawling back. Like I was saying, this had to work, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't fail at some level. So to me, it was no big deal. 60-hour weeks, so that was just normal. I mean, that was just what I did.
Yeah.
But once you have kids, and I post this on Hacker News occasionally, there's always some Hacker News badass. He's like, oh, I have a kid, and I have a startup, and it's no problem. I'm like, okay, buddy, you're the biggest badass in the world. But for a regular human being, when you have a kid, it's a significant change in where you're and how you spend your time. I always tell people, be very careful. I strongly advise, do not do startup and kids at the same time.
So
if you have to do it, you do it. But
I think
don't
there's certain roles. So if you're in a deep technical role, and you're responsible for a lot of technical production, and you've got kids, the mismatch between what it takes to be a parent and a caregiver versus what it takes to be a coder is so great that it's really hard to weave that balance. It's easier if you're a manager, because you're at work dealing with people, and then when you get home, you still are dealing with people.
Well, I want to take a step back. When you talk about startup, you're talking about people wearing like 50 hats, right?
Yeah, see, but that's
what I mean.
That's what I would
You're working too hard by definition, because that's what startup is.
Yeah. But I don't agree at all. I think actually, if those people who are bragging about working 80-hour weeks, they should also be bragging about working drunk, because that's effectively what you're doing. Like, if you want to actually maximize the output, doing a bunch of spending a bunch of time at work is actually not going to do it.
80 is a lot. I mean, I didn't say 80. I said 60. So
even
what I'm
60,
talking
even
about,
60. I mean, you hit diminishing returns at about 40 hours, and I think as a whether it's a coder or a manager. You get the best results out of people if you we actually kick people out of the office at 6 p.m. Say, go home, stop doing this. When people are online chatting about stuff on our internal company chat.
Yeah, but those are people you've hired. I'm talking about the first three people.
But we do that ourselves as well. I mean, after that, so there was about a month or less really of overwork, and then we all kind of had a reality check. And we're like, this isn't the kind of company we want to run.
I think that's a very good idea.
And we dialed that way back. And I think if, I definitely was not, I was not a present partner or even really a present manager because of overworking. And what I tried to do and I'm still really trying to do, but it's an ongoing process. Is like take that same focus and drive that I applied to.
Call it the show.
I know. Yeah. So I took that same that same focus and everything, and applied that to like really studying leadership as if I was learning a new operating system or a new programming platform. Like, how do good leaders lead? Like, there's books on this. Some of them are horrible to read. Some of those books are like, just they're written by like, a salesperson or something.
Like,
wait until you have kids. That's the ultimate leadership test. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Even a little.
Well, and especially I think
they're the worst people, by the way. When somebody acts really terrible, and you say, "Boy, you're being childish." Well, that's what kids are.
But the funny thing is, like, all the leadership stuff goes directly into kids because you want your kids to emulate. They will watch everything you do, even the things you don't see yourself
Absolutely, yeah. So you have to be so self-aware.
Trick. Right, you have all the time, 24, literally 24/7, because your kids are around you all the time. You're there you're present at their birth. What other human beings have you known since birth? Probably none, unless you're a twin, right?
Well,
so
I agree with
you weren't paying attention.
I agree with what you're saying.
I did pretty good about not being in the office, and also making sure my guys didn't feel this pressure. And so very few people came in on Saturday or Sunday or anything like that.
Yeah.
And trying to keep that. But I personally had this problem of being at home and not shutting off work.
Yeah, you got to self-manage. You got to like treat yourself like an employee.
I think that's part of what you're saying that's a little bit unrealistic, because if you're early stage at a company, you're super driven by definition. You're like ultimate type A personality. So you're saying, I understand this is a lifetime thing we're doing, but it's hard to change overnight, right? Particularly it's hard to turn off, like Damien is saying, because it's in your entire being. Like everything you are is what this is.
I wonder if part of this is like that a startup is usually a new thing. When we started NPM, my two co-founders were, I could see it, were really stressed out about stuff. And I was kind of like, yeah, the site's down, but like, it's been down before. It's all right. Like, I've been doing this for 4 years.
Well, that's good to be a sense of calm.
Like
not run around like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. As the leader, your job is to, when things are going bad, let's be calm, let's take a breath, it's the end of the world. Let's try to figure out how we can do this and prevent it in the future. Let's not be in constant firefight, freak out mode.
Right. Because it's actually not a fire. Like, we use the term fire because that's how it feels, but nobody's dying, right? Like, NPM is not mission critical software that's keeping planes in the sky or anything. So, if there's any planes that fall out of the sky because of a web service anyway, like that's an airline going to ride.
Plane.
Yeah. But the other thing about that is really one of the things that I heard from founders that I met who were on their third or fourth startup, and I kind of asked them like, how do you do that? And one of the main things is like, you don't overwork. It's a job, and you just do it, and then you have go find a hobby that you really care about and spend all of your evenings on it, because if that's what it takes.
But have kids, and then you won't have time for that shit.
Exactly, or just have kids.
Yeah. When I gave up sports, I didn't watch TV.
Yeah.
I didn't. I gave up cars. I had two things. I had work and my family.
Yeah.
And I think that was a mistake. I think I should have had something that was just for me.
Yeah.
My getaway.
Need it.
And
because when you're managing people,
I gave that up.
Managing people, you're focused on them and making them successful, and that you don't have anything that's filling back your engine. You need that like self-empathy.
But something else you said really resonated, which is if you look at first-time parents, the first time you have a kid, you're totally freaking out all the time because the whole process is, first of all, terrifying, and second, you have no idea what you're doing, right? And it's your only baby, your child, the most important thing in the world. So if you get it wrong, everything is lost, right? But if you talk to people that have 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, they're like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
They have a much better perspective on, what's going on. Like everything's gonna be okay. It's hard. There will be some freakouts. But I think that's a really good analog. When people have 3, 4 startups, it becomes a different process. You have better perspective for sure, but you're not going to have that as a first-time parent, as a first-time startup person. And I think it is part of what makes you good. You want to recognize that commitment. But I also like what you said of like having commitment. Like, look, we don't really want to be here 80 hours a week. That's not even possible. we want to be excited, we want to be committed, but we also want to have like balance in our lives. I think that's a great principle to set out early on, because it's really, really true. But then you also got to acknowledge the fact that when you start a small company like this, everybody's all in. And it's like 3 key superstars that are going to make it happen or not happen, right? There's a period of intense commitment. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean when I say, like, don't do that with kids if you can avoid it.
Even large companies, you tend to have, it's like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the work is being done by 20% of the people. Yeah. And with large companies, that's also true. And so you can have a few people that are just constantly working and pushing stuff forward. You're lucky if you have those.
But startups have to be founded by superstar level people. I mean, you're dealing with like the MVPs, right? That's why they're able to do what they're able to do. Now, as the company scales, you're not going to be all MVPs. You're going to have a team of players. That some are better than others. And
I think the 3 of us can all agree that everybody who's ever started a startup and is in this car is probably really awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yes, absolutely. But balance is really good. I'm totally down with balance.
Now, how have you been on that, Jeff? You haven't really.
Well, I remember there were times when I would just get, as you get larger, one of the things about hiring more people is you don't have to do so much. You don't have to take the weight of the world on your shoulders. You can, because when I left, it was funny because I thought Joel was making just a funny joke, but he posted on it. It's like Jeff left, and he did the job of 3 people, so we have to have 3 people replacing him, and because Jeff had clown shoes, his shoes were so big, and I thought he was joking, but he was really right, because I would take all that stuff on myself and be like, I need this done as perfectly, basically, and the only way to make that happen is for me to do it, and you have to let that go, right? Like, I don't have to do everything anymore. And I think on Discourse, my